Well, we're live, and this is Becky Chernek with Chernek Consulting, and this is also F&I on the Edge too tonight. So I have a fantastic guest. I am so excited about bringing Mr. David Cripps on, and boy, he is very informative when it comes to what's happening in the car business, right? And with Auto Dealer University, Mr. David Cripps. One of the things too that I want everyone to do, if you would please, and share this with everyone.
Sure.
And make sure that this word gets out. I am just really very fortunate to have Mr. David Cripps on with me. I was actually on his show. It was quite a show. So again, I'm excited to have David on tonight. Thank you so much, David, and welcome to F&I on the Edge.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I've been tuning into a lot of your episodes, and you do an amazing job, Rebecca. Not only here, but in other places, F&I Today on CBT News, and all the places that we get to see you. Always really valuable.
Well, thank you so much. I've been doing this for some time now. I've been around a little bit. I started in the car business. We were talking a bit while ago about, my dad was a dealer, and then from there I went and sold cars at Unpack, Lincoln and Mercury in Baltimore, and I was the first female hired to sell cars there. And then later I went to sell trucks, and I was the first female to sell trucks there too. And then also later got promoted to F&I, and I thought I died and went to heaven. And I've had a really cool career in automotive retail. I really have. I've had a lot of fun. There are times, it wasn't easy the whole time. I tell you that it really wasn't, but I had it. I really was very fortunate and worked with some really terrific people and learned a great deal. And going up the ladder. And never saying never, right? Never say never. And from there, as a finance person to a director of finance for a large automotive dealership group in the Washington, D.C. area, and then later, Auto Nation. And that was interesting, let me tell you. So that's where, we gave birth, if you will, to many selling. We certainly proved that you could be still profitable and up front. And boy, let me tell you, there were a lot of naysayers then that said there's no way you could do many selling and still be successful. And boy, we took the nation by storm. And then from there, went from the mega stores into the new car stores. It was pretty freaking phenomenal. And then 2001, I decided I was going to go ahead and start my own thing. And that has been an interesting ride. It's not easy. There's nothing easy, and don't let anyone tell you it is. It's rewarding because you put a tremendous amount of effort into it. But I'll tell you right now, it's not easy having your own deal. So, but here we are. This is terrific.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I can definitely, obviously relate. And like you said, just moments before we went live, we kind of were reminiscing about the parallels and things of that we've both kind of gone through, because we entered the business right around the same time. So, I remember all those things, that the transitions that you're talking about. I can remember, experiencing those things as well. So it's pretty cool. But now we're, fast forward, we're in 2020, which is kind of hard to believe. But and here's the next thing that we're talking about, right? It's like the next phase of things that are new to dealers, and things that transitions, and things that we're changing. And so I'm so happy to be with you tonight talking about that.
Well, here's the thing. Boy, I'll tell you, the last 3 months it's been a whirlwind, right, of events. And eye-opening, and maybe a good time for some internal processing, if you will, and time for change in a positive way. I'm trying to think through it as a positive way, but and the thing is, as dealers, we're trying to grasp how do we sell a car, when our dealerships were shut down, maybe we can sell it in service. I mean, how do we make this whole thing work? And then we realized, for some, these dealers were already a year in advance, light years away. They had already put in innovative processes to help customers kind of navigate through the digital journey by determining not only shopping for a vehicle, but being able to shop payments, as well as determining credit criteria, their budget, well before they ever made their way into the dealership. And I'm going to tell you, there were few dealerships out there, dealer groups out there, who have done a phenomenal job with that. And they opened up and they said, man, we got this. And boy, did they get it. And they were releasing commercials. My goodness, we offer user-friendly, upfront, safe way of buying a vehicle. We're going to do this right. We're delivering vehicles to your home. We will make financing easy. And they were all over it. Meanwhile, here's some of these unfortunate other side of the story. Some of these other dealers that were going, you know what? We kind of like what we've been doing, and we've been very successful, Becky, doing what we've been doing. And so we're not going to make those changes. And I can bet some of these dealers were thinking to themselves, why didn't we make some of those changes? And they were probably likely kicking themselves in the butt. And they were scrambling. They trying to contact digital retail providers, trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We've got to sell cars. We can't. We've got to figure this out. So again, some of them, did that. But now, with this kind of stuff kind of dying down, stores are opening back up again. We're opening up the country, thank goodness. We could talk about whether or not it should have been shut down to begin with, but I'm not quite going there. However, now we're opening the country back up, and are dealers, do you think, going back to the way that it used to be and saying, maybe all that stuff isn't really necessary? Why offer customers the ability to shop or to finance vehicles online? Why don't we just wait until they get into the dealership and do all this stuff? So what do you think? What do you think that they're likely going to do?
Well, it's interesting, lots of lessons learned here. Obviously, those who did have some practices that they were developing, right, where it may not have been the big demand, but it was coming, and they've been working on it, and they were definitely more prepared when it seems like overnight that was fast forwarded, like what it maybe will look like 10 years from now or 5 years from now, when that's just the way you buy cars, right? So they had a little bit of an edge there for sure, and were able to take advantage of that. But as you said, one of the things about this, whether the fear has died down, whatever the case may be, we know that people are out, right? They're coming back, and they've come back big just in the last few weeks at most stores. So I think it's real easy to shift back to, okay, well, they're here. We don't need this right now. We need to focus on this. And there's some merit, obviously, in dealing with those who are physically coming out to your store, but also the lesson that we learned and what we saw, it really exposed us and as dealers, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm talking about all over the country. So it put it in front of our face. And now I believe that you're going to see, and hopefully more aggressively, dealers that are looking for those options and how to perfect them, and knowing that, hey, it's inevitable. We knew we were going there anyway. We just didn't know this was going to happen and force us there. But now's the time we need to take a strong look at it. And for those who are experiencing a great month right now, or maybe last month or the coming month with traffic, still need to have that as one of the priorities moving forward, is my opinion.
So I'm going to ask you some tough questions.
Sure, absolutely. Fire away.
This is tough. Okay, so I've talked to some of my dealer friends, and some, and I always throw out, what about Carvana? What about CarMax? What about Vroom? What about these other providers? And there are plenty more out there. I mean, that's just a few. I mean, just look at, let's look at Carvana right now. They're number 8 volume retailer in the country, and they have sold more pre-owned vehicles that I think it's Sonic, Lithium Motors, and AutoNation combined. And I mean, what's that tell us? I mean, so is that just an anomaly or what? I mean, when everything happened, this pandemic, their stocks just went soared. I mean, just took off. And here they were, another message, and it was all about, well, not only are we going to make it a touchless F&I experience or buying experience now, we are also going to make sure that we can deliver this vehicle to your home with a 7-day money-back guarantee. 90 days to your first payment. I don't know, that sounds pretty cool.
It does sound pretty cool, you know, and it sounds so cool in their business model and the way that they display their cars and the big vending machines. And don't forget the timing of kind of when they came around, right? When they came around was at a time when we're seeing other types of technology and startup companies explode. You know, companies like Uber, Airbnb, we're all, you know, shifting in the market, Amazon killing it. So the recipe was ripe for finding investors, and that's what Carvana really did. Whoever is the owner, I don't even know who started Carvana, but the bottom line is they went out and found investors, and investors flocked to it because they bought in to the idea, right? That this is a way of the future, and it seems like a great deal, a great plan, a great business plan for getting ahead of the car business. And obviously they have succeeded in a big way I think they're still losing money, but I think from what I last heard, but they've succeeded in a big way as far as the numbers go. And obviously when you go into this COVID situation, they're really, from a branding standpoint, the first ones that you think of that already have this process down. So it's no surprise that their stocks will go up and things like that. In a way, I feel like Carvana is our best friend as a dealer in a sense, because I do believe that dealers can get this right working with manufacturers and can create something that's a similar style of a process, but yet do much better at it, perform it much better. We are amazing as car, and I'm not just patting me on the back. I'm saying car people, we talk about it all the time. They're the most creative, most resilient, most, you know, they find the solutions, right? And with OEMs behind them, if they work towards something, there's just a huge potential there for us to do it better than a Carvana. So I think that in some ways what Carvana did was remind us of, hey, we need to get there. And another reason I think Carvana is one of our best friends is they're helping us train the consumer, just like the other companies we mentioned, on a new way of buying. So when it is time that dealers finally step up to the plate and they begin this online process, now it's not as scary as it would have been 10 years ago when people aren't going to adapt to it and you're investing all your money and you're coming to the dance too soon. Right now, we can come and it can begin to make sense because people are trained to buy the way that we could set this up.
So, okay, so more, I think here's what I think. I think that in order to drive this, it really has to be from the consumer base. It's changing their behaviors really to make an impact. If customers are still showing up at the dealership, keep doing what they've always been doing, why change?
Yeah, well, hey, I think that I think customers will continue to show up at the dealership, and I think it's going to look different. I think they're going to come and they're going to get the experience with the car, and that, you know, there's a couple of ways that might look. There might be some type of product specialist that goes over cars before you consider them, or it might be after you make your decision online that there's this big presentation. I think it's really going to kind of be both of those things that are happening, but the idea is that if a consumer can go on right now, let's face it, most consumers on new cars anyway have kind of almost determined the car they're going to buy before they arrive at the store. We know that they're only going to 1.2 stores or whatever that crazy stat is. The bottom line is they're not traditionally, they're doing it online. I heard on the other day, speaking of CBT News, which you're a partner in, a contributing partner. I heard an interview the other day with Jim Fitzpatrick, and I can't remember the guest, but you know, he said if you win them on the laptop, you'll see them on the blacktop, right? We know that for a fact. So
Yep.
we know where the action is with consumers. Our lot has moved to online. So the point is that they've done so much. They're so much further along in the process. And my argument for moving F&I process, because I know that's your baby, and my argument for moving F&I onto online process is that I believe not only will it not hurt sales, I believe it potentially drives sales to a dealership or for a dealer, because you mentioned earlier, Becky, that when the shock and awe of presenting the menu system, right?
Yeah.
And you got a little bit of pushback, but it turned out to be revolutionary. And then, guys like Grant Cardone came along and pushed, hey, let's give information. Let's give all the information to the customer. It was the last thing that we wanted to do as dealers, was push price out there and all this other stuff, right? But we've managed to now, that is almost more the norm than to not give information. So the point is, now imagine, this is the only information, by the way, that the consumer can't get, is all the details in the financing area, right? They can't get that yet in most of the time online. So if we could push that online, imagine what now we might be able to do in driving sales, especially if we market it correctly.
I think so too. And especially, we talked, and I can't remember at what webinar, we were talking about TrueCar too. And, where did TrueCar come from? And why did that all happen? Why did that even come about? And so, or, some of these other third-party providers, why are they successful? Well, they're successful because dealers wouldn't do business the way the customer wanted to do business. And they thought, okay, well, that's fine. We will. We'll just take
You're exactly right. You're spot on.
And it's like, what the hell? It's like, okay, we'll just do it. And guess what happened? They were immensely successful.
And they didn't have to open a dealership.
And they didn't have to go through that. They're like, sure, what the hell, why not?
Yeah, let's capture all the leads and then sell them to the dealers. Sounds like a pretty good plan to me.
Right. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what is so hard to understand about that? I don't get that whole thing, right? So if you give a customer what they want, if you make life a lot easier for them to buy a car, why do you even have to worry about having to compensate another third-party provider, give your data, that information away if you don't have to? And so the thing is, I always encourage a dealer to have that data, to have their own data, have their digital retailing, have captured their own customers, provide customers with the information that they're looking for. And so now we can capture more of our own customer without having to send them out to another provider.
Yeah, and I think we got a lot of buy-in, by the way, on this idea during this COVID, because what happened was we were forced into this situation where we had to do it, right? And then you had a lot of dealers who maybe had not done that much of it, and they were forced in this place. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this actually works. Like we're actually able to make this work.
Yeah. So I just feel like if we can adapt and not necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, let's loosen up a bit, give customers more information. If they feel like they're in more control of the buying process, is, as you mentioned, Grant Cardone says more information is better. Why not provide them with more information? Why not let them carry some of the burden, do some of the self-desking earlier on, and reduce that heavy lifting before they get into the dealership? We have some comments, and we have to get to some of these comments. And Mr. Anthony Santangelo, I love saying his last name. And Mr. Bob Richards. Hey, Bob, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And there's Laura Berman. Hey, girl. Good to see you. Great to see you. Chris Allen. Yeah, preach. Awesome. And then hey, 100%. Look who it is, Mr. Al Patron.
Come on.
He's your buddy. Hey. Yeah, so I encouraged Mr. Al Patron to come next week, and he's going to come on live with me.
That's awesome.
Hey, you two. Look who it is, Miss Melissa Burrow. She is. I love that girl.
She's a rock star.
I love her, man. She is so awesome. We went to where the heck was it? San Francisco, Melissa, for NADA. And we
Yes.
talk about wine and dine. She's the one to hang out with. Let me tell you, had the best wine ever, best company. She's amazing. I just love her a lot.
She is fantastic. Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to get to meet her at Women in Automotive Conference, and there was a big group of us that hung out and had dinner after, and we had a great conversation. She's fantastic.
She's a lovely person. Lovely person. Uncle G.
Chris says Uncle G.
All right, and then be a driven driver. All right.
There you go.
Be a driven driver. Frederick.
Yeah. He's saying that ties into his dealership, by the way, the driven driver, but we'll keep going.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. All right. And then we got Mr. Frederick. Thank you very much, Mr. Frederick, for being on tonight. I appreciate it. Looking for some good insight. Brian Sheffield. Do you know who Brian is?
You know what? The name looks familiar, but you're probably gonna have to remind me of where Brian's at.
Brian is in Florida, and he's an F&I person.
Nice.
And I trained Brian years back, and he is, phenomenal because he applied all my principles.
There you go. There you go.
He's really good, though.
Good job, Brian.
That's right. And then, plug.
Yeah,
he gave you a plug.
Yeah.
So
he gave himself a plug, by the way, but that's
not you.
I love that. He's actually one of our partners with Auto Dealer University, and he's with Driven Cars in Canada. That's why he said something about driving driven.
Oh, driving driven. Hey, about process. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me. I also did train. I've also a lot of training in Canada. I worked with SimTech Dealer Services and provided their 5-day work course as well as their advanced class. And then, of course, that was in Ontario, Canada. And then I was in Calgary and Vancouver. And I worked with some of the guys. I don't know if Jonathan's going to get on here, but Mr. Quebec, Canada. And so we might be doing some good stuff there, too. So I love you guys from Canada. Good people, awesome people.
They're great people.
They show up for class like it's 7:00 in the morning.
Imagine that.
So what are y'all doing here? Well, we're geared up. We can't wait to study. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. 7:00 in the morning. They're all ready to go. Did you hear that, Brian?
They're dedicated. It's good.
I love it. It is. It is good. And then, of course, you got Miss Christina Farnan stopped in tonight. Thank you, Miss Christina Farnan. What a nice person. Terrific person. So Laura, Bob, Anthony, Chris, Mr. El Patron. Yeah, so some good stuff here. So yeah, I think that we have some of the people that are attending this evening really got to see the benefit of engaging, maybe with that customer earlier on. But I just feel like I think that had this went on, and I'm not wanting a pandemic to change the way that we do business, but I do think if in fact we can get more information earlier on, I'd rather have that than have a customer coming into a dealership, landing on a car, to take off the car, to put them on another car, to take a much longer time to put a car deal together, than find out we're really not very profitable in this whole deal. And you know what? It was a frustrating experience for the customer too.
Yeah, imagine if we could have a very large percentage of our sales already having, virtually completed the F&I process, if you will, online. What that would look like from an efficiency standpoint, when just what you just mentioned, the time that it takes to go through these different things. We see some salespeople like Ali Rada, the number one sales person in the world, and also battling it out for that spot, Mr. Frank Crenity, guys that are averaging roughly 150 cars a month. I mean, we know that there are dealerships that aren't close to that, and yet they're doing it. And when you listen to interviews with those individuals, they talk about how they're doing that, how they're moving more of the process to a place where the customer's further along when they get to the store, so that it helps them be more efficient and be able to deliver more cars. And I think as a salesperson, if I had someone that was, we could take the financing aspect sort of out of it and know that that was complete. I would buy into that all day long if I were a salesperson.
So for years, though, here's the thing. For years, we've been training F&I. Wait until the customer gets into the F&I office before we talk specifics. We're not going to do that. And BDC has always been trained, whatever you do, don't get into all that because you don't need to. What's the thing? Just get them in the dealership. Don't worry about any answering, get into specifics. We don't want to do any of that. Let's just get them into the dealership. So there is something to be said about let's just get them into the dealership. I guess they're saying, Beck, here's the thing. It's worked. We've been very successful this way. Why in the world would we change that? And I'm thinking that's short-lived. Someone called it a sugar high.
Well, they're kind of right. And I'll share why. It is, that's the challenging part. And quite frankly, it's on the surface, it's very logical, right? I mean, hey, we're doing really well here. Why would we jump out of the boat and into waters that are uncharted and maybe we'll eventually get there, but on a different pace, right? We don't want to go there because of our success. So it is a challenging thing. And that's why none of us really know how quickly this will become a norm or won't. But I would say this, I often think about, and we hear this, as you can imagine, and you do too, I'm sure, when you talk about training with a dealership, no, we're good. We're selling, we're killing it right now. We're good. Okay. But the point to that is that I think about guys like John Marazzi here in Florida. He's the managing partner of Brandon Honda and also Sun Toyota, and two of the most successful dealerships in the state. They're owned by the Morgan Group, but he is the managing partner of both stores. And before he was the managing partner at Brandon Honda. And when he took over, when they bought Sun Toyota and he took over as the managing partner, Sun Toyota, and you're very familiar, you worked with JM&A, and of course they have Southeast Toyota here in the 5 southern states. And Sun Toyota in their district was number one for many, many years, pretty consistently. And we're talking about a Toyota store that was selling, 500 cars a month and, high-fiving each other every month because it was a great number. Well, John Marazzi walks in, and of course, anytime there's a change in the regime, you kind of wonder what's going to go on. John Marazzi comes in and they're thinking, hey, we're number one. We don't need to do anything really any differently. John had a different vision, and within a couple of months, they're selling 700, 800, 900 cars. Now, to me, that is someone with some foresight that says, I don't care that you're number one. I don't care that you're here. Here's what we could do. And it's hard when you're on top to think about that you should do other things, right? But the people who are really entrepreneurs and really sharp, and there are many of them, by the way, across this industry, they realize that and they find ways to make it happen.
It reminds me of, and I don't think I'm going to talk names, but I'm working in a big store. They're running 700 cars a month, and that's a big store, right?
Yes.
And I could not get them at the time, as crazy as it may sound. They had 100 cash deals that they didn't turn to finance, that they just ran the paperwork on, and that was it. And I'm like, can't we just do a menu with these guys? Can't we just do something? I mean, how can you be making that much money? And can't I just present something to them? Well, we don't have time for that, Beck. We don't need an extra person for that. They ran lean. I give them credit for that. They ran lean, but they missed the boat. They missed the opportunity. And, and the same store was...
I'd volunteer, by the way, to run 100 deals for the opportunity.
Exactly. 100
cash deals, especially right now, why money is so cheap. How could you not do that?
And do you know, let's talk about that. How many and I'm not here to, but we do need to be more versed in making sure customers understand the advantages to financing rather than paying cash for an automobile.
It's almost unethical, Becky, for us not to share that.
Right? And they're like,
It really is.
what's the benefit? I said, somebody needs to sit you down and make sure that you really understand why. What is the benefit to the customer? What is the benefit of either a short-term lease, short-term financing? What is the benefit to the customer when it comes to that, rather than paying cash for an automobile? And frankly, some of that training is not happening. And I think it's so important. Not only should we be training our F&I people on that, but our salespeople need to have a better understanding as to, what is a lease, or why should I even bother to go ahead and convert a customer from paying cash? Because you know what? When a customer's paying cash, guess what? My life is freaking easy, man. They're paying me cash. I don't have to worry about anything. I know that deal's getting done.
Right. That right there is called selling scared. But here's the deal. The lease to me, if I could, I'm a huge fan of leasing, by the way, but if I could share one thing, because I do all this top 10 countdown of, benefits of leasing, but the number one is the only one I want to share with the audience. And it's really, and I ask this question, and almost never does someone answer it correctly, but what's the number one, and I'm not asking you, Becky, I'm just asking the audience, what do you think the number one benefit of leasing a car is? What's the number one benefit of leasing a car? And for me, it always comes back to this. And for me, it's and it's legit. I mean, I'm convicted with this down to the bottom of my soul, is that the number one benefit of leasing is that the lease company takes the resale gamble for you. They take the resale gamble for you. There is nothing that you can walk in a store and buy where that occurs. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, if you take nothing away about leasing, you could get yourself sold on leasing on that one concept. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, I think, again, it has a lot to do with the training, and it has a lot to do with not only training up our sales department, but F&I. Don't get me wrong, F&I can be just as guilty. And, I'm constantly preaching, show your cash, but show financing. If not show financing, showing the lease. Show. Here's the thing. You don't have to pay me cash if you don't want to, although I'll take it. But have you ever thought of it this way? Can I explain why many of our customers would prefer to do leasing than pay cash for an automobile? Or can I at least show you our special subvented specials that we have available for our customer for 36 months? I mean, but, not to show a customer who's paying cash that there's other ways to go about it. First of all, here's the other thing, is that we know when a customer leases or financing, we retain more business that way. And we also, by converting customers over to our financing and or leasing, we have the more opportunity to obviously sell more products. And so Chris Allen wants to say something. 100% right. The process has changed. Why shouldn't F&I? There you go, Chris.
Right. I can't help myself, Becky. I got to go back real quick to present, working with that cash buyer in F&I. I think one of the things when we talk about not being trained properly in F&I is the way, just like it is out front, it's the way, it's our approach, right? It really is our approach when we have that customer walk in. So, if I've got a cash customer that walks in, I want to obviously convert. But I'm also at this time, especially again, with money so cheap, I'm already sold anyway on that this is the better route for the customer. But the approach when someone comes in, it shouldn't be what you might hear from a lot of F&I salespeople that are already kind of somewhat disappointed. There's a cash deal they got to deal with, right? And that's the first mistake.
Like bullshit. There goes the eyes.
Yeah, here's exactly how I share that. It's what I call the shoulder drop, right? And it's like when I tell my teenage son he's got to mow the grass. Mm-hmm. Oh, Dad, right? The shoulder drop, right? The F&I guy or gal is doing the shoulder drop, if not outside, inside, when they hear about that cash deal.
Yeah.
But the approach, right? So one of the ways I would open up with a cash customer for that conversion is, hey, thank you for your purchase, whatever the case may be. And by the way, it looks like you're paying cash. That's the safest, quickest way for us to get paid. So thank you for that. Now I'll go into, by the way, I do need to disclose to you because ethically I feel responsible, because there are some programs that even with cash you might want to take that would probably be helpful in the money part or the cash part. But the point to that is, and you can go into that presentation, whatever that is, but the point is that initial way that you receive that customer sets the tone, just like it does outside on the meet and greet. It sets the tone for how receptive they're going to be. I can take that wall down right away when I acknowledge, hey, thank you. That's the quickest, safest way for me to get paid on this deal. Now that takes away my motive for presenting everything else.
Well, here's the thing. If we train up our sales staff and they have a better understanding as to the reasons why, what's in it for me, what's in it for the customer,
exactly,
right? Why and how can I explain it without putting my foot in my mouth? So yeah, and some get bewildered and they need more training than others. But this is where this is so important, for our sales managers to make sure that that we do a better job in training our staff on the idea behind it and the benefits behind it. We don't have to have all the intricacies down, but at least be able to explain it enough for the customer to have a better understanding, of the reasons why you would recommend it. And or, how many times I've told an F&I manager, just because the salesperson's told you customers paying cash, they're going to tell you, cash, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Don't mess up my deal. I know I'm getting cash. I know I got cash. Nothing can mess this up. So here's the thing. A lot of times, how many times has it been really where I've had a salesperson say that, and I'm not trying to go to a different subject, but how many times has it been where a salesperson has told me customer's not putting any money down, and it turns out we can get an additional $1,000 down, right? Or how many customers
every day
salesperson said, "Oh, they're not going to buy anything," and they obviously buy everything. And so that's the same thing, cash, okay, fine, cash. And I tell a customer, great, I understand you're paying cash, right? Is that right? Okay, perfect, fine, all right, already. So here's the thing, but part of my responsibility is to share some other options that are available to you.
Exactly.
It's real downstream. It's just like, hey, you can pay cash all you want, but a lot of our customers, maybe, they prefer not to, and here's why. Can I show you something? Yeah. And so you show them different options, but you've got to be prepared to be able to say, okay, I'm good. It's all good. It's all good. But you know what? Here's some other options that are available, but that doesn't happen. It's not happening enough. I look at these menus, I see what's happening, and they're not. They're taking the check and they're running with it. And it's like, why? Why would you do that? Well, the customer tells us they're just not interested. That's okay. That's fine. That's the first thing that they're going to say. I'm just not interested. It's all good. Well, part of my responsibility is to share these options with you, because the last thing I want you to do is leave out of here and not understand the terms and options that are available to you. So if you just give me a few moments, let me kind of review this with you. You decide you don't want to do it. Hey, that's completely, that's fine.
Yep.
Right? That's how we do it.
You can initial the disclosure. So, one of the things also that we talked about, and I know that you're in dealers all the time, and one of your steps is to look at, let's look at the deal jackets. Let's figure out where there could be improvements. And we talked about it earlier. I'm not sure if it was on this broadcast or another one, but just being able to look into a deal jacket and actually recreate the crime scene, right? For lack of a better word, because you can really trace it all the way back to that initial pencil. Watch that you could orchestrate the deal all the way through. They should have us on court TV We should be forensics, I think, too, because we could do that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I could do it in a heartbeat, freaking second. And, you know, I do have that sense of humor. It's like, oh, please tell me what you did. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, great. And I could write down my notes and I'm like, oh, okay. And when you did that, you did it this. Yeah, absolutely, Becky. Oh, sure. I always do that all the time, 100% of the time. Now, would you say that 100% of the time, or is that 80% of the time, 90% of the time? Okay, 90% of the time. So you're like, are you sure about that? Oh, absolutely. So you go, unfortunately, then you pull the deals and it's like not there, and they come back and they go, I don't know what deals you pulled. I swear. But you really can recreate. The deals tell you everything, right? And you know, I can tell you how many people got upset with me because I had to tell the truth, and because the deals tell the truth as to what's going on. And, you know, menus should be in the deal jacket, or a digital menu obviously should be in the cloud. And so we should have access to all of that. And, you know, we want to be able, and how much easier is it when you have a freaking digital menu, right? Digital cash versus financing versus leasing. It's crazy that you wouldn't want to go ahead and show all the options that you have. You utilize all the tools I've always said, utilize all the tools in your toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's what they're there for. And
you reminded me kind of when you mentioned the digital menu, you reminded me that, you know, as we move forward and we look at F&I process online, and, you know, we talked about earlier, when you're presenting a menu in person to a customer, you don't want to overwhelm them with every product known to mankind, right? Like we had talked about, less is more and things like that. But think about this: if our process is online, we can have little icons that they can click on for remote key, road and tire. And then it could even be a little digital or video explanation. So now we know that not only as a consumer, if they're at home, they're gonna go through that stuff without that ticker going on in their head that they need to get done and get out of the dealership, right? And now we have not only a professional way to display those options, but also how to sell them right there. And the customer can go in there and again, how amazing would it be that a customer clicked off on this one, and this one, right? It's been added into their options on F&I. I think that's another home run once this process moves online.
Amen. I mean, I just think, you know, let me just say hi to some of these guys that are here.
Yeah, please.
Robert Moore, F&I does not like leases because they feel they can't sell more back end and not able to make reserve. I know, Robert, you're from New York. I don't know, but here's what I do know. I do know that there are some stores though that really do well with leasing. I mean, they do better in leasing than they do finance. It's just learning it. It's just really understanding how to explain a lease. And one of the things in my training, I take it down. Back in the, here we go again, aging myself. But back in the day, I used to do a lease by hand. And I think every F&I person should know how to do a lease by hand. And once you understand how to do a lease by hand, it's so easy to explain it to a customer. Just to have, exercises and go through the exercises. And I know it's a drill and I know it's like that, but I'm telling you, you do a few of these, you'll thank me. So here it was, I was doing a class on leasing and I made them do several exercises. And it was like tearing their brains out because they weren't used to that, because they were used to a computer doing it, obviously. But then I found, and they didn't really care for the exercise that much, but it wasn't about 3 weeks later, an F&I person said, you know what, thank God you did that. It was tough on me, but it was the best thing that someone has ever done for me. I know how to do these leases inside and out. I don't make mistakes, and I'm damn good at explaining them, and I'm making some money on them. That's why I do what I do, because I don't want to just tell someone. I want someone to buy in and internalize it and really be able to work with it and understand it. And when that happens, because that's how I am.
Yeah.
Tell me something till the cows come home. It's just like blurs right over.
I
What did you just say?
totally agree.
And it's not until I really internalize it and work with it do I get it.
Mhm.
So and that really helped this F&I person really embrace the science behind a lease. Hey, Richie Bellows here. Good to
Hey.
see you, Mr. Richie. And then we got Frederick. Always ask. Absolutely. 100% of the time. Right, Frederick? And as a salesperson's not looking to stay at the dealership they are at, I would rather lease customers, versus long-term lease financing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and here's the thing. You know, I realize that we have to do some long-term financing options, but the OEM plays it out, right? Because obviously cars are getting more and more expensive. I'd rather have a customer lease than finance, but 72 months, 84 months, then we wonder why customers are flipped by the time they get back into the dealership and have to trade them out.
No doubt.
So,
I think another thing, and this is another just really a tip for salespeople, typically, maybe desk managers as well, is just using those incentives that manufacturers court the people who are considering leasing or coming back and returning, obviously, but looking at those and pulling those up and showing the customer, hey, not only are you getting right now an additional whatever, but look here at this other incentive. It doesn't apply to you right now because we're talking about beginning a lease, but look at the incentives for people where their leases are ending. They're paying them an extra $2,000 of hard money to come back with that car on top of what we're already talking about. Now, I can't promise those are going to be there in the future, but you can go back historically, and they seem to have been around for the last several years. And I don't really see that changing. Mr. Customer, they're going to be courting you throughout this process as well. So it doesn't stop here. There are additional incentives that you are likely to receive and pay off in a big way. I mean, I think that's part of something that we should be talking about.
Back in the day, but back in the day, we used to be able to do leasing with customers who had slow pay derogatory history. We'd collect about three
multiple security deposits.
You remember that, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
But it was a better way for the customer.
It was a great way. It was a fantastic.
Why wouldn't they do that? It just blows me away. I'd much rather do that than go ahead and hang somebody out for 72 months, at a higher interest rate. It's let's do this right. Let's go ahead. Let's get them in this lease. And then by the time we are all done and over this 3 years, you're out, you're done. And, you can decide to finance or lease, your next vehicle. Come on now.
Yeah.
It was just a better way to go altogether. I don't know how we got away from that.
It was a great solution. I'm sad to see that not being the case now as well.
Yeah. Ford used to do really well with that whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. Offer 3 options at the first pencil. Robert says, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Aviva DeVito, what a great name that is. Aviva DeVito. She is with ECP. She's one of the regional managers of the regional managers for the New Jersey marketplace. That's, I make fun. Ted, I don't know if you know Ted Ings or not. Are you familiar with Ted and his big shops?
Yes.
He lives in New Jersey. Okay. And I told him, I don't think I'm going to go to New Jersey anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not on my list right now.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just not going there. It's not going to happen. And Brian says, DocuPad is freaking amazing. I never thought he'd ever say something like this. Now, if you can change Brian, you can change anybody. No,
right?
He was good. He was always a good. Once I got him on menu, he never came off. But no, DocuPad is good. I like the idea behind it. Here's the thing that I'm not crazy. I like DocuPad. I do. I like it a lot. The thing is sometimes it's almost like the finance person likes it so much. And if I can use this analogy, it's like you're showing your friend all your pictures and you're going, you got to see these pictures, and these are amazing. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm done looking at your freaking pictures already. So you got to tie the customer in with it, right? And I always say, give the customer the stylist. Have them kind of have some fun with this and get them more and more involved. I mean, as cool as it is, you've got to make it more interactive with them still, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. It's kind of like the modern version of, you know, when you're out on the lot and you're doing the walk around the customer's trade. Hey, read me the VIN number, and you got the customer reading that kind of action, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right, it keeps the customer more engaged, and it's probably more important when we're talking about F&I and looking at a DocuPad to have that engagement. Absolutely.
And it's supposed to, but it's like, you know, when are you going to give them a chance to kind of get involved? When do they get the stylist? Only when they sign? When you're the one who's touching everything. I mean, let them touch some stuff.
Well, my guess is if Brian is sold on it that well, he's having some great success. So
no, he is. He's doing. There's a lot of people, that are doing really well. I'm with Brian.
There we go.
The Leasing, is that what he is? Okay. All the new tools are amazing. That's Chris. Yes.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's the other thing. Oh, wait a minute. Brian, thank you again. Appreciate you coming on.
Yes,
next time. Until next time. But yeah, you're right. I think some of the guys on this technology stuff, I think that they have a tendency to back away from it. I think you probably see some of the guys up at the dealership and they're just not quite there with all the technology yet.
Yeah. And I'll raise my hand because I love the technology and I want to use all those tools. When they're first introduced to me, I'm like, because not because I don't know they're going to be fantastic, because I just know that it's going to take me a little time to get comfortable with it, so that now I can go back to what I do, which is, transferring the message well to the customer in order to lead them to a great conclusion that's in everyone's benefit, including theirs, obviously. But not, part of my confidence is knowing that I know how to, you maximize that tool, so that just that initial introduction, it's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. That's right, Chris. You're right, Chris.
Well,
Chris, I would rather you do the technology part, right? And I come in and just talk with the customer at the same time.
Thanks, Larry. He says he always likes watching Becky. Hopefully that's a good thing.
I'm sure that's good.
No, Larry's awesome. He's a good guy. I love Larry. He knows a lot of stuff. That man is freaking smart. He is one smart cookie. But yeah, so here's the thing, I think some of this technology, dealer, and hopefully you don't mind me saying this, but dealer goes to the NADA meetings or the 20 group meetings and see, I don't care what meetings, okay? It doesn't matter. It all happens at the same place. And they all go, oh yeah, I love that technology. Oh, wow. And I'm getting it. So they get to the dealership and they're going, okay, everybody, I got a new plan. I got a new team. Not understand. And it's funny because Peter Caruso, I don't know. I always get his name wrong, but I love you, Pete. And he's from New York. And he was talking about when this catastrophe hit, this pandemic, and they were sitting on having digital retailing on their website and didn't even know it. It's like, wait a minute, I think we kind of have that.
That's awesome.
That's the thing that happens, though. I mean, we have all this technology and dealers are sitting on it, paying for it. They don't even use it. And I can tell you how many times a dealer will say to me, I don't, that digital retailing doesn't work. I said, okay, which one did you use? Not that it matters and I'm not, let's just say it's ABC. And I'm like, well, they're supposed to be really good. Yeah, I know, but it didn't work. And I'm like, well, why not? I don't know, but it didn't work. So what do you think? And then, or the next thing is that it didn't work because it cost me more sales than it cost us more sales than it made us. Okay. Well, is there who worked with it in the dealership? Well, I don't know.
Right.
And it made us.
Yeah, that really is the issue, because with great products, you know, you have the person or the vendor who has maybe something amazing to offer, and maybe does a product demonstration that shows off some of those things that the product is capable of, and the dealer gets excited, just like you said. But at the end of the day, it's the person who's representing it that really knows it inside and out, and is an expert in how it can be used in every way. Unfortunately, when it gets turned over, and it's not always the dealer's fault, maybe it's their fault that, you know, the level of commitment sometimes, but then it gets passed around to many people who just don't understand the product well enough. And some of that's the vendor's responsibility, and some of it is the user's responsibility. It's always been a fine line there. So, yeah.
I've always said, especially when we get into this digital retailing, first of all, what is it? What the heck is it? What really is it? You know, and you know, I even if it's just a lead generator or a lead gen, that's okay too. And every dealer is different in how they want to utilize it. Mm-hmm. Some will take it all to allow the buyer to go all the way through the digital journey, to selecting products, to hard inquiry, to a final approval. And some dealers go, no, that is just way too much. No, we're not doing all that. No, they can select the products, but we're going to go ahead and we'll give them an idea of their payment options based off of a soft credit approval or some sort of a matrix. Mm-hmm. However, which way they do it, they need to understand the philosophy behind the mindset behind the product, the tech provider, and how that aligns with what's going on in their dealership. Wouldn't you agree? In order for them to really maximize the results from it?
1,000,000%. In fact, I would argue that all the personnel in the store that are on the retail end of it need to understand that, or at least the basics of it, because again, we always go back to what is a consumer hearing that has their attention, that gets them to us. Why in the world, if we want them, it goes back to that old saying, right? Win them on the laptop, see them on the blacktop. If we want them here with this, then we hit the right button. Now, the customer experience looks completely different when they arrive, or someone doesn't understand or know how to maximize those opportunities or lead source. That's a big deal. That's a real big deal.
Yeah, and I think that in of itself is the reasons why many dealers are failing with this, because it's the driver behind the seat, whether it be the online aggregator or online engagement tool, however which way they see that, or even that digital menu. I can tell you how many times these guys will go in and say to the dealer, get your people on this digital menu. And I like digital menu. I'm not telling, I do. But you know what? If an F&I person is doing right with the paper menu and they're running their $1,500 per car, I don't know, sometimes leave them alone. You know, and then, you know, maybe you do both, the digital menu and print the menu. But and this is, again, it's like giving someone a guitar who's used to playing the piano. I've been used to playing the piano. Now you're handing me a different instrument, and it takes time, you know, to get engaged with that whole thing. And that's one of the things that I really try to hit home with when a dealer says, I want to go digital. This is where we're going. I'm with you. I get it. But understand, it's going to take time for that to integrate. It's a behavioral change. And it can take up to 6 months to a year, really, to get an F&I person to embrace digital menu versus paper menu.
Yeah.
Look how long it took us to get a paper menu in.
Yeah, right.
That took a while. We got Chris Allen. He says, I love the level of commitment. Yay. Kelly William, both in sales and fixed. Yes, this guy is amazing. He's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And Larry says, how do you keep looking 30 years old? Thanks for saying that.
Thank you, Larry. The way that I do that, Larry, just so you know, is
I love it, Larry. I'm smart. I'm taking this on sales calls. Oh, I like you, Larry. Thank you. I appreciate it. 30 years old. I love that. All right, Robert. Hated everyone so-called digital retailing of all the dealers I tried when helped son regarding lease. None of them allowed me to get an accurate payment. All asked us to submit contact information.
Well, there you go. That just shows we're not there yet. You know, those processes they're not fulfilling what they needed to. They did capture his attention, and maybe there's a better way to move from there into the store and not sell it as an online process. Maybe that is part of the answer, but overall, it just shows we're not there yet.
Well, here's the thing. I think that if in fact you're going to do it, you're either in or you're out.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're just going to upset customers.
Yeah.
And that means that you can't change the price of the vehicle when the customer shows up.
Definitely can't do that.
You change the price of the car when the customer shows up. And I know some of you, I know, you know, like that, shush. Stop it. But you know what? That's where that New York dealer got slammed. 1.7 million, a general manager. Now, I'm not sure exactly how or why the dealer, I don't know about all that, but I do know that a general manager was sued by the state for $1.7 million and for fraudulent activity and deceptive practices and all that good stuff, New York. And so that wasn't, I can imagine, not a lot of fun. And so a lot of it was because customers came in off of one price and they switched it. So I would be somewhat careful how you're doing that today. But the last thing you want to do here is offer customers the ability to streamline the process and say, when they get into the dealership say, I was only kidding. You don't really do that shit. Are you kidding? You fell for that?
Yeah, that would not work well.
Sense of humor here. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. Chris Allen, don't change the price of the car. Thank you, Chris. See? Don't change the price of the car. That's right. Oh my God, that's insane. Yeah, I know. So I was only kidding. But so it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Our hour is here. And boy, did that just go by like that.
Flew by.
It did. It just went by so quickly. David, thank you so much, Dave, for it's right, David, right?
It's David. It's David, but I typically go by Dave, so it's whatever you want to call me.
Okay, so I do that once in a while. I do that like Rebecca, Becky, Rebecca. Call me whatever you want, but just don't call me late for dinner.
Right?
Yeah. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. And thanks, guys. Chris says, nice meeting you, Chris. I appreciate it. Thank you again, Dave. And let's do this again soon. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ending. Ending.